that we're in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And in light of the tragic events on the weekend, I'd like us to take a minute of silence before beginning the meeting. To note. Thank you, Heather. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. That takes us on to the meeting minutes of February 8th. Can I get a motion to approve those meeting minutes as circulated? Moved by Councillor Sanford, seconded by Councillor Duggan. Are there any errors or omissions to note? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. That takes us on to public hearings, presentations, and questions. And we have two presentations tonight. The first of which is from the Lunenburg Board of Trade, and the Lunenburg Board of Trade President Jamie Myra is with us to give a presentation regarding the bicycle lane pilot. Mr. President.
Thank you, Your Worship, councilors. Thanks for taking the time to hear me tonight. So you all got our presentation that we sent in to you probably a couple of weeks ago now. And I guess the reason we're here is obviously to deal with the bike lane pop-up proposal that you guys have approved for June of this upcoming season. And I mean, I can read our presentation if you'd like. It's here, sent to you a while ago, but basically at the bottom line is the members on Montague Street and other areas of town strongly, I guess, oppose the pilot project of this magnitude at this time for a number of reasons. First and foremost, nobody has probably, well, I shouldn't say nobody, but most businesses have not suffered the last 2 years like the restaurant industry has. It's been an absolute, unbelievable during COVID, and all signs, aim at a great spring, summer season. They're all excited. And the last thing anyone wants is anything impeding business from moving forward, whether it's only 30 days or 2 weeks. Anything that we do to put barriers in front of trying to operate a business this spring, I think would be the wrong move at this time. And we all know what the big issue is, so we can talk about things for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or however long you want, but parking is the issue. Nobody's opposed to bicycle lanes. Nobody's opposed to the concept of a bicycle lane. They're opposed to losing 42 parking spots, whether it's for 3 days, 7 days, 30 days. Right now, it isn't viable. We don't feel at this time. We're not saying the Board of Trade nor the business community wouldn't support a bike lane in the future. We've recommended in our email and in correspondence we've had with the Bicycle Association other ideas and other options that we feel would be more appropriate at this time for a number of reasons. One, parking is the number one concern, but two, pure danger. If you're going to put a bicycle lane in place, it's basically to make it easier to navigate the community. So we suggested Victoria Road, Falkland Street, down the street going to Montague Street, Falkland Street there. And that's what we sort of recommended to them. They say that's really not negotiable at this time. I think they seem to be fine with Montague Street. I think they feel that they have your well wishes and approval for Montague Street, so they don't seem to be willing to look at changing their route. And to be quite honest, in every correspondence we've had with them, we've brought up parking as the number one concern. And almost every response we've gotten back, they've been very professional and great responses, but they've never once talked about the parking problem, because they're probably no different than I am or you guys are sitting there. We don't know how to solve the parking problem at this time. So I guess what I'd like to see, if it would be doable, would be for the town and the board to work with these folks to relocate for a pilot project somewheres like Victoria Road, Falkland Street, which is a much faster traffic zone anyways. I would think it would be much more dangerous to drive a bicycle on Falkland Street than it is Montague Street, quite honestly. Try that for a while. In the meantime, over the next year or two, work as a group to try to resolve some of our major parking issues we have in the downtown core. We all know it's an issue. We all know the biggest issue isn't that we have too many spots. It's that we have too few spots. Most communities that have these bike lanes or these pedestrian malls, which I think are very nice, have a lot of underground parking facilities or other areas where you can park when you're in that area. We don't have that at this time. We don't have a shuttle that we've talked about since I was probably 25. So, I mean, I think that we have to look at those solutions, but until we have those solutions in place, we feel we just can't justify taking 42 parking spots away from the Montague Street area. And, you know, we have a very old demographic age-wise. We actually attract a very old demographic of tourists. We don't, draw a lot of young families to Lunenburg. And I think this would also impact the locals that go out and have supper at night on I can use my parents, for example. If they can't park on Montague Street, they won't be going out for supper the month of June in that area. That's a guarantee, right? So that's our proposal. You have the facts in front of you. The one highlighted fact that I'd like to bring up is that if you combine the 9 or 10 businesses that we actually got responses, went to and got letters from, they pay close to $150,000 in property taxes, and they employ almost 300 people. So if you look at who they employ and how many they employ, they'd actually be outside of Stelia, and I'm not sure how many they employ right now because of COVID, and that industry would probably be our largest employer we have within the community. And they're strongly opposed to it. We've had letters back from the Bike Association saying they've talked to some of these people, yet we have letters from the same people they've said they've talked to that strongly oppose the bicycle lane going in that location at this time. I mean, we'd rather see, if you're going to go down there, over time, reroute it to the right side of the south side of Blue Nose Drive and go in that way. And then you'd basically be losing about 3 or 4 spots. One, which I think a bus parks there, and a couple of Basils, the horse and buggy park there. But that would be a more appropriate location if you're going to try to navigate through town than a 500-yard or so bike lane on Montague Street that eliminates 42 parking spots. So we hope you take our presentation into consideration. We feel very strong about this. This group is not happy the fact that nobody approached them about this before the decision was made. I think the bicycle group, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, were instructed by this group to go to the businesses and come back. That never did happen. And if it did, it was like a day before they met you guys, right in the middle of a busy summer day, right? So I just think that this was rushed on their part, and some information was shared that might not have been 100% accurate. And we're here, I guess, to strongly oppose the original decision that this council made back in August, I guess.
Thank you, Jamie. Jamie has about 3 minutes left on the balance of his presentation. Council also has 5 minutes of questions. Are there any questions for Jamie at this stage? Councillor Halverson.
Thanks for your presentation, Jamie, and I really appreciate you bringing the concerns of the Board of Trade to council. I sit on the steering team for the bike project. I'm curious why, I know that the Board of Trade was approached to be a member of the steering team. Why has no one stepped forward to sit on the steering team to have those conversations instead of bringing it here?
When we were asked to sit on it, we were asked about, I'd say third week of July, they approached the Board of Trade. And at that time, to be quite honest, with COVID and everything, that was when the last round of really heavy restrictions at the time were just released. And to be honest, none of our members, because of staffing, had time to sit on the committee. And I think they were asked to come to us. And I was approached at 3:30 on a Friday afternoon, and they were coming to you that Tuesday. And they asked me if I could poll our membership from 3:30 Friday afternoon before your meeting on Tuesday. And I quite frankly told them, no, that's not possible. It's not fair to our membership. It's not fair to the business community to rush something through like that. I think they were told well in advance of that day to get that information that they were asked to get, and they didn't do it for whatever reason. They might have been busy as well. But I do think that for whatever reason, maybe it was deadlines with funding they were receiving. I'm not sure. But it seems to be that a lot of things seem to be rushed on that whole project. So that's why nobody from the board, and since then, we've never been approached to serve on the committee. We have been approached to
right.
meet. They are meeting with us next week. But
So again, so you're talking about the initial ask, and that's fair, and that was rushed. And I think if they were up against the budget constraints at that point,
Yeah.
Then we did the extension. The budget was pushed back, so that was no longer a problem.
Yeah.
I know there's been meetings since then, and I know they've reached out again to Board of Trade and to get that input. And the nearest time they were given to speak was again next week. I just feel like, you know, I've got a list of things we can talk about here. I just feel like this conversation we're having tonight is a little, I don't know, a little putting the cart before the horse until you hear, you know, have an actual sit-down meeting, both sides, to find out what it is that they're proposing. I know you talked about, you know, there's barriers to parking. Those 42 spaces, you know, we all know there's very little parking here. And we're not going to solve that the next year. We know that, right? So why not look at taking that barrier and trying to find ways to turn that to an opportunity, right? You know, I've been sitting down with, there's a lot of really devoted people in the community who spend a lot of time trying to find ways to make this work and trying to find ways to, you know, engage businesses and try and make this a boon for those very businesses on Montague. The town's been involved with trying to, I know one of the concerns you said about deliveries. I know they've addressed that. They've addressed what they're trying to create an atmosphere where it's going to draw people to that area, and not just from town, to draw people from outside of town, to bring business to the businesses. And I just feel like, look, hey, look, it may be a terrible idea, but we don't know until both you and they sit down and try and, you know, see where each other are coming from, and try to, if there's a middle ground to be found, I think that's the way we should look at this.
we've had communication, quite a bit of communication back and forth because of people's schedules, everything else. Our meeting in February was pushed back 2 weeks. So that's what happened. We couldn't meet before this meeting. And, but bottom line, I understand what you're saying, and that seems to be their argument or their talk back to us. The 42 parking spots, to be quite honest, at this point, without a solution are non-negotiable. That's how the business community feels. And you just used the point again, that you're working with the business community and the business community seems to be excited or want. We haven't talked to a business owner down there outside the people that own the bicycle shop.
I didn't say that.
Well, they're trying to do stuff for the business owner.
Well, that's what they want to do, but
all the businesses are opposed. All
Can I-
businesses.
I'm going to just interject here
Sure,
in
to
that
Jerry,
this isn't really a question.
Sorry, the question I was trying to get to was, what I would like to see is, could we please have you sit down with them before it comes back to us to make this decision?
We can do that. We've talked many a time.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay, and our board has talked. Our board has made our decision. Our membership has made their decision. So I guess it's sort of like arbitration now. We can negotiate as long as we want, but if we're holding our ground, they're holding their ground, you guys are the arbitrators. One of us aren't going to like the decision, and then we have to live with it and move on. That's the way we see it. But we've tried to talk to them and they don't seem to be really willing to change their ideas. And look, they have a great plan. I'm not crapping on their plan. It's beautiful. It's going to be entertainment down there and hopefully draw people. But if you have no place to park, it doesn't matter how many people you draw. That's the point the business community is making. So I guess that is their fight. And I mean, it's a pretty strong contingent of them.
Okay. Any further questions from council? Seeing none, I just have a quick clarification question, Jamie, and I'm not sure you're going to have this at your fingertips, but you talked about how the businesses on Montague Street employ 300 people. And I'm just wondering what that would be in a full-time equivalent. It's probably not 300 in a full-time equivalent.
No, because some of them are closed. So I wouldn't even, every response they sent was when it was busy. So
Yeah. Okay.
I wouldn't be able to answer.
Yeah, that's a more efficient metric for us to know.
Like there's some open year round, there's some not. So
Yeah. You want to use your mic there, Deputy Mayor?
Just for an example, like the museum, when they're at full capacity, which includes the restaurants, about 150 people there, just in that one site. So there is a substantial amount of employment on that.
Oh, I appreciate that, but
Yeah.
I'm saying that's not a full-time year-round
No, it's
equivalent
not, no.
employment. So
no,
that's how those things
Yeah.
typically get measured. And I was wondering if the measurement was that.
no, they
Okay.
just sent us during peak season. To be
Yeah.
honest. So,
Okay, thank you, Jamie. We have this further down the agenda and we will discuss it then unless anybody else has a really quick final question. Okay, seeing none.
thank you very much.
Thank you,
very
Jamie.
much, folks. Thanks.
Our next presentation is regarding the Federal Ghost Gear Fund, and we have Michael Ernst from Titan Maritime to do a presentation. So Michael, you'll have 10 minutes.
If I may ask, Ms. McCollum, could you bring up the slide presentation, please? Council, thank you very much, and thank you very much, Mayor Risser, for hearing us this evening. This is a federal program, so you're probably wondering why it's coming before council. My name is Michael Ernst. I live in Mahone Bay. I was formerly a councillor with the municipality of the District of Lunenburg. And this purpose of our presentation is to inform and educate not only council, but the other levels of government, the provincial government, about the Federal Ghost Gear Fund and the importance of its continuation to the health of our coastal communities and our fisheries. This evening, I have Zach Green, who is the CEO of Titan Maritime, and they have been involved in working under the fund in the last year. And Zach is going to take over the presentation and we will transfer back and forth. So do we have our, yes, sorry, let's go through the, okay, now that's the package I actually sent you for council. There was a second slide package. That's it there. Thank you.
I'm Zach Green. I own Mahone Marine in Mahone Bay. And a few years ago, we get more and more requests for work to be done on the water. So I started another company, Titan Maritime. We do oil cleanup, salvage work, that sort of thing. And it came to our attention that there was this program coming out from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans to do ghost gear cleanup. That was a little over 2 years ago. We applied for it. This is something our staff is very passionate about. There's a lot of gear out there. It turned down at the first round of funding, and then Fisheries and Oceans came to us and asked if I guess they had some more funds left over. They asked if we could quickly mobilize and if we had a project we could do, and we said absolutely. We have a great team, and we talked to fishers along the South Shore to find out where they know where the gear is. And that was the approach we took. Most contractors in this worked off of locations they were given by Fisheries and Oceans where they were told they lost gear, and they were having very little success. We talked to fishers and asked them where they know there's gear. And we had a huge success. I think we got, in our small program, we got half as much as the whole Atlantic Maritime put together along the coast here, from Mahone Bay all the way to Yarmouth. We did the project, and it was very successful. We'd love to see it come back again, because it's just the very beginning. There's so much out there, and it's continuing to catch. Michael can talk more about what ghost gear is, but it's a real problem.
If we go on to the next page, please. This is supplemental to your council package that you will have received. But what is ghost gear? If we just keep scrolling down, please, I'm going to go through this. It's abandoned, lost, or otherwise discarded fishing gear. And it's very important that we are not trying to blame anybody for deliberately disposing or leaving this gear behind. It is there, and it's a legacy that has been inherited from years of aquaculture and other fishing activity. As you probably realize, that a lot of the material used to biodegrade, but of course, we're no longer making wooden lobster traps, and we're no longer using hemp rope. So here's the, let's go a bit more, please, thank you. So this is the fund itself. It's called the Sustainable Fisheries Solutions and Repeatable Support Contribution Program. There'll be a quiz after this to see if you can remember that name. I've yet to get it nailed down, but it is quite a weird acronym as well. 60.7 million fund. If you do research, you'll find it's 18.3 million, but this is the actual amount of money that's been allocated over 2 years. It was 18.3, so some of that has to cover, of course, for the administration. There are 4 components to the fund: retrieval, responsible disposal, i.e. recycling, technology development, and international leadership. It does support programs that are overseas. Let's go along there a bit more, please. It's a ghost gear keeps on fishing indefinitely. If you can see, there's a lobster there with a missing left claw, and another one entangled, and this is what's called ghost fishing. So it can continue fishing, and the species can itself be impacted by that. If we go along, please. So what we're asking council to consider is, first of all, is that you consider writing a letter to the federal government supporting the continuance of this fund. As you all know, as being councillors, and I've heard it many times in my 8 years in the municipality district of Lunenburg, municipal government is the most approachable form of government. And you probably hate hearing that, but guess what? We are, or you are. And so people can come to you with their concerns, and we can ask you, because if you want to get something going, you always go to the municipality. The other thing we ask is that your residents be engaged in collecting ghost gear. This is just some ghost gear that was collected from Second Peninsula Beach or Bachman's Beach. 22 of these lobster rings, small bits of polypropylene line, all the stuff stays in the ocean. Fortunately, with the lobster rings, a lot of those are made of rubber, and they do biodegrade quite quickly. And finally, that the disposal of ghost gear is something that may be coming to you, because the recycling of this material is going to be dealt with. Now, who deals with municipal waste? The municipalities. And so the province, if it dictates it, thou shall start to dispose of this in a responsible manner, then you have got to come up with the solutions on how to do that. So as you know, EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility, is something that is coming your way. And there's talk internationally of the EPR being applied to fishing gear as well. That's the conclusion of my part of our part of the presentation. And I want to thank you for your time. And also, Ms. McCollum, before I forget, thank you very much for your help in putting this together. If you have questions, Zach or myself will take this.
Okay, so our presenters are 3 minutes under time, so I'll add that to the questions. We've got about 8 minutes worth of questions, if anyone has any. Councillor Howison.
Thanks for the presentation. It's obviously this is a boon for anyone. I'm glad to see that it's still continuing. I do have one question about the cleanup, asking residents to assist in the cleanup of local shoreline areas. Obviously, it's something we can ask, but are there any established programs or anything, any systems we could set up here in Lunenburg that are tried and true, or a template we can follow to help guide residents when they're trying to do that cleanup?
From my experience with the municipality district of Lunenburg, we had a litter incentive program that applied to the roads. And I know the town of Shelburne has the same thing, and Lockport has its cleanup days, but they tend to apply to roadside waste. So that could be possibly a program for you to consider. having some sort of incentive program for the cleanup, not only of your streets, but of shoreline. Just letting people be aware of the fact that the stuff is on the coast, its impact on the fishing environment and on the environment in general is very important. And they can contribute in some small way of dealing with that. It's same as if you're walking through town, you see a coffee cup on the ground that somebody just throws up, you pick it up, your town is a cleaner town.
Any further questions?
Zach is able to offer a lot of technical expertise actually on the slides that you saw there. He can describe the programs more in depth if you would like to go back to his McCallum. We'll just look at those pictures of the gear that was brought up. I think it's on the second page of the presentation.
Thanks, Michael. Are there any further council questions at this stage? No?
As you can see in these slides, this first slide, this was off of Oak Island, and actually this was something that CHS, Canadian Hydrographic Services, told us about when they were surveying the harbor. They said there's something down there. They didn't know what it was, so we sent an ROV, remote underwater vehicle, down there to inspect it, and we sent some divers down, and that's what it was. It was an abandoned aquaculture farm. It had been down there for maybe 30 years. And it, as you can see, it still floats. The polypropylene floats. And it's never going to sink. It's just eventually going to disintegrate and put microfibers into the ocean. So it's very important we find this stuff and get it up. The second slide, that is a huge, I think it was a herring net or something. That was, some fishermen told us about it. It was about 10 feet underwater. All the fishermen knew about it and they stayed away from it because it was almost the size of this room, the amount of netting and buoys, and it was 20 feet, 30 feet off the bottom and 10 or 15 feet from the surface.
Okay.
Just a great big mess. And we were able to pull it up, and now the fishermen don't have to worry about getting in it, and it's not catching any more fish.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, this is on our agenda for later for discussion. Thank you for your presentation. And we will get to it then. So that takes us on to correspondence, petitions, and proclamations consideration. There is a piece of court.
Excuse me, Your Worship, I just brought some business cards here. If you're.
Thanks. We'll see that those are distributed.
Let's switch this on.
Thank you. That takes us on to correspondence. We have a piece of correspondence from the Lunenburg Board of Trade, read the commercial tax rate request. We will hold that over for the budget deliberations. And that takes us on to unfinished business. We've had a couple of applications for vacancies on the anti-racism committee. So can I get an appointment, a motion to make those appointments? Councillor Duggan?
I would like to move to appoint Sal Falk and Melissa Labrador to the Anti-Racism Special Committee.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Halverson, is there discussion or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, the motion is carried. Committee meeting minutes, recommendations, reports, and notices of motion. There are some motions from the Protective Services Committee. So the Deputy Mayor, if you'd be so kind.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, we have two recommendations to council from our meeting on last Thursday. The first one is that all monies received from the sale of the Lunenburg and District Fire Department's 1999 Ford truck go back to the department to help pay for their new 2020 Ford truck with a loan in a box. I don't know how relevant that is, but it's there.
Okay, can I get a second? Oh, sorry. Yes, and as usual, we will allow Council Bertels to declare conflict. Sorry, I didn't note that. A seconder for that, Councillor Sanford. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, the motion is carried. There, don't come back just yet. There's another one. And then there's a motion about the mutual aid agreement. So Deputy Mayor?
Yes, the committee would like to recommend the council to approve the mutual aid fire services agreement renewal dated December 6, 2021, and that the mayor and interim CAO are authorized to execute the document on behalf of the town and to affix the municipal seal. And, I might, for if anyone's questions, I think I would defer to Kevin because I think he's a little better equipped to discuss what this might all mean.
Like how
So
quickly you snuck that in there. Eh? Can I get a seconder for that? Counselor Sanford again. Is there any discussion or debate, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, the motion is carried. Now we can accept Counselor Bertles back to the table. That takes us on to new business. The first item is the Board of Trade bicycle lane request. There is a discussion and draft motion provided by staff. Is it anyone's pleasure to move that as presented, or Counselor Halverson? Moving the motion. Deputy Mayor seconding. Any discussion or debate? Counselor Halverson, then the Deputy Mayor.
Right, so as we mentioned, I think you heard the discussion we had with Jamie from the Board of Trade. I feel like there's a lot of incongruent information being between these two groups. And I think it would behoove both to sit down together before we decide to do anything, whether it's cancel the event, move the event, or go ahead with the event. You know, again, I'm on the committee and I've been party to all the conversations that have had taken place, and there's been great engagement with the town. I know there have been efforts made to engage with the Board of Trade. They, as the council representative on the committee and speaking for the town, you know, I'm sure the committee is tired of hearing me say, okay, well, the Board of Trade objection is going to be, you know, we have to be concerned about the businesses in this respect because. So I want.
Any further discussion? You two are in agreement. What a surprise. Any further discussion from councilors? Yeah. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We will arrange the meeting. And there's a motion regarding the Federal Ghost Gear Fund and a letter of support to the Honorable Joyce Murray, Minister of Fisheries and Oceans and the Canadian Coast Guard. Is it anyone's pleasure to move that? Moved by Councillor Ernst, seconded by Councillor Sanford. Is there any discussion or debate? Councillor Halverson.
Just further to my question to Mr. Ernst, I would be interested, you know, when we, if we go ahead with this motion, I would like to find out if there is anything the town can do in a more formal way, aside from just, you know, posting something up on our social media about, hey, pick up your litter when you're down at the beach. I know there are some groups, I've seen there's a Facebook group called, I think, Coastal Cleanup or Nova Scotia Cleanup. There are some people perhaps we could reach out to, if that's, you know, the pleasure of council, perhaps we could have perhaps staff reach out to somebody and find out, you know, when organized work days are taking place in our area, and we could be part of that in a more official capacity.
Okay. Sure, that's duly noted. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? We will send the letter. Takes us on to wastewater treatment plant upgrade, approval to proceed with the grant application. There's a staff report and recommendation. And I don't know, the staff report was written by Ian Tillard, but I don't know who in Public Works is going to speak to this. Whomever. I'd like to summarize the report, or Lisa can. Lisa's always the default.
So I'll just briefly recap it for council if you wish. So there is a funding opportunity that has opened up for the wastewater treatment plant through the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, or ICIP. Applications opened the 1st of February and are due the end of March. This funding is for 73.33%. So as council will recall, back in September, you approved an implementation plan to upgrade the plant with SBR technology. And further to that, in December, hoping that there might be a grant call, council approved additional pre-design work, which is now assisting staff during this application process if approved this evening. Unfortunately, though, the timing isn't well placed to include the Oakfall extension in the application, and staff do feel if it is included, it could jeopardize our funding application. The current budget estimate for the plant with the upgrades is $9.982 million, with funding for the town's portion to be $2,662,000. There is a draft motion included in the report for council's consideration.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. The deputy mayor with a question. We're moving the motion.
I'd be happy to move the motion, your worship.
I figured you might.
I just like to also say, the only thing that disappoints me is that I wish we still had our names on the motions, because I'd be very happy to still, maybe my great grandchild might want to look back what his ancestor might done, and I'd be very proud to have my name on this.
Moved by the deputy mayor and seconded, I think Councillor Duggan was quickest on the draw. Sorry, Councillor Halverson. I didn't figure this one was going to be particularly controversial. Is there any discussion, questions? Deputy mayor.
I'd just like to say one more thing while we're on record.
You might want to take your mask
No.
down so you're not muffled, Peter.
I'd just like to say this while we're on record, that I've noticed a new level of achievement in the staff reports coming through. They are extremely thorough and to point. And not just with this one, there's another one later on in the in-camera agenda that's equally as notable that's been brought forward. And I just think it's, kudos to staff. They're really, I've seen just, it's amazing. It's a pleasure to be on council with some of the work that's being done here recently.
It is high praise, particularly considering what a demanding group the 7 of us can be. Any further questions? Councillor Halverson.
If to Lisa through the chair, I just want to talk about that outflow pipe. So what are the options at this point to pick that funding up? Will there be an option to anticipate that we could proceed with this part of it and then pick that up later on?
That is correct,
Okay.
Councilor Hutchison. That would be the thought, is that we would apply for this application now, hopefully be successful, construct that work, and then sort of as that's wrapping up, perhaps be continuing the early steps to move along for an additional call for grants.
Okay. Any further questions? Seeing none, I have one. And it's regards the pre-design, because I remember the last time we were talking, we had CBCL in front of council. I talked about future proofing for additional capacity and leaving space in the plant redesign for additional sequencing batches. I think that's what it's called, in case we had future capacity needs. And I just was going to ask if that has been taken into consideration in the pre-design. Okay. Sold. It has been moved and seconded. I feel like this one's going to be a real nail biter, but all those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. I'm surprised you didn't touch the ceiling. Perfect. Okay, that takes us on to town hall restoration. Staff report and recommendation.
Thank you, Your Worship. As council is aware, in the 21-22.
Sorry, Lisa, do you just want to pull the little mic a little closer so we can
Okay.
hear you? Yeah, there we go.
Is this good?
Yeah.
Okay. As council is aware, in the 21-22 capital budget, $50,000 was approved for this project. In December of 2021, staff identified other considerations for funding opportunities, which would be for the 22-23 fiscal year. So in January 2022, the request for proposal was advertised and closed for the development of the tender package. We received 2 proposals, both of which were very similar in strength. However, Fishburne Sheridan's price was 2/3 lower than that of DSRA. Therefore, Fishburne Sheridan scored the highest on our bid evaluation, and the reference checks have been favorable. There is a draft motion at the end of the report for council's consideration.
Thank you, Lisa. Lisa K. I'm going to have to get used to doing that, or call you by your titles. Is it anybody's pleasure to move that motion as circulated? Moved by Counselor Ernst, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Are there any questions at this stage? Seeing none, is there any discussion or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. All right, that takes us on to our wastewater and water treatment quarterly information reports for October to December 2021. And who will be? Nobody will be presenting those. Are there any council questions of staff at this stage? Seeing none, we will move on. I need a motion. Oh, sorry, Councillor Sanford, sorry.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to point out, I took the liberty this afternoon, thinking about that wastewater processing graph that was in that package that we have for the information quarterly report. So I printed, and I did it very quickly, so I didn't reference anything, but I just wanted to understand what the rainfall for Lunenburg was for the year. So that graph that you have on your table, I had just printed that, and if you have the chance, as you go forward, take a look at the graph from the wastewater treatment plant for the same months. And it's really interesting, and I don't know, can Heather, can you bring that up maybe in the, yeah, perfect. So if we look at February, November, and December, just as the three highest months for the greatest flow of treated wastewater. And if you look at this chart, and again, I haven't referenced this, so I'm a little bit nervous speaking to it, but as I look at it, if you look at February, November, and December, again, there are three higher months for average rainfall in Lunenburg that correspond with that graph. So it just speaks to, we know that tourism season isn't big in February, November, and December, right? So it really speaks to the, implies the impact that water is getting into the system. And that's what I've been on about, looking for some overlay of this graph so we could look at this. Anyhow, just food for thought.
Thank you, Councillor Sanford. Yes, we are certainly treating too much stormwater. Okay, now I need a motion to meet in camera pursuant to section 22(2) of the Municipal Government Act to discuss staff wages and benefits and the potential sale of land. Can I get a motion to that effect? Moved by Councillor Sanford, seconded by Councillor Birtles. All those in favor? Opposed? And with council's consent, we'll take a 10-minute recess and reconvene in camera at 6:53.